Hi, this is Jay at the shop again. We're going to talk today a little bit about how to start the chainsaws that we have on these rigs. These are Husqvarnas. They're either a 576 version or a 576 XP. And what I do here at the shop to start them, if it's a cold start, first thing I do is I make sure the red button right here, this red lever, it's all the way up. That's the on position. The blue lever is the choke lever. If you're doing a cold start, pull the choke out, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to have to go around to the front, put it on the floor. All right, I'm going to go through the starting procedure, how I do it here at the shop. First thing that I do is I make sure the red button is up. That's on. Pull our choke button out, and that will give it a little extra gas when we start to pull and choke, to get it started. This is the compression button. You want to make sure you push that in at the start of this. All right? And now I'm going to give it like 3 quick pulls and try to get it started. Make sure the brake is on. Okay, that wanted to start, so the next time I pull it, it will probably start. But since there was compression in the chamber, your compression plug is out right now. You want to push that in so it'll make it a little bit easier to pull. If you don't, this whole thing will pull up on you. Just push that compression button in and it should start. Now, if you've been running the saw, this is called a hot start, where the saw has been running. You either stall it out or you set it down to reposition a ladder, and then you have to start it up again. At this time, you don't want to pull your choke lever out. Leave that pushed in, but make sure your red button is up. That's your on and off button. And make sure your compression button is pushed in so that it's easier to pull and start. And it should start within 3 or 4 pulls. And then just feather the throttle trigger and get it to come up to speed, and that should take care of you when you have the hot start. But if you go and try to hot start it and pull the choke out, you're going to push too much fuel into the fuel cylinder, and it will actually flood it out. So when you hear the term flooding, it means you have too much fuel into the combustion chamber, and it will not start. All right, now like I said, this is the cylinder head of your saw, and we have the spark plug here. We have that compression relief button right here. Right now it's in the out position. If you've been running your saw, it's going to be in the out position. If you were to try to start this right now, it would start real hard because you'd have full compression in the chamber. What you can do is anytime you're starting this, you're going to want to push that in, and that relieves some of this pressure in the piston chamber to allow you to start this more easily. Anytime you're starting it and it catches and just pops over a couple of times but doesn't quite really start, it's going to push that compression button out. And then the next time you go to start that, if you don't catch that, it's going to pull real hard, or it's going to pull up and it's going to be really difficult to pull. So to be able to relieve that and make it easier to start, you push that compression button in, and then it'll pull a lot easier. You can see now it's going to be real difficult to pull with that compression button out. Press your compression button in, pulls much easier. Now the next thing that we want to know is the chain on, and is it in the right direction? If we look at the teeth, the part that does the cutting those should be pointing away from you on the top edge of the blade going down, because the cut stroke of the saw is actually coming back at the saw. So you want those teeth, the sharp teeth, to be grabbing and pulling back towards the saw. Now that we have the direction of the saw blade on right, when you're firing the saw up and it's running, that saw is, you're going to want to plunge cut into the roof. And you only want to use like the front third to front half of that saw to make your cut. You don't want to go straight in. You want to come in at an angle and let it grab like that. The reason being is you do not want to use it and come straight in like this, because you can get a kickback on it. That chain can bind on you and create a dangerous situation. This saw is the most dangerous tool that we have on any of our rigs. So you got to always be smart and be careful when you're using it. After we get done using the saw, we've got to take it apart, we've got to clean it up. And I'm just going to show you how to break the saw down to take the saw apart and get everything exposed so that we can get it cleaned up. Yeah, this is called a scrunch. It's the chainsaw tool. It has a screwdriver, a flat screwdriver blade on one side, and a couple of different size sockets for loosening and tightening the nuts up. Break these loose and spin these off. You take your chain cover off. Now that exposes the chain drive sprocket, chain bar, and the chainsaw blade itself. Okay, I'm going to take this all apart. Now this area is going to be full of sawdust, debris, roof material, whatever you've been cutting last. And the thing that I do to clean this up is I just brush it out with a brush. I have a paint brush right here, a chip brush, and I also have our WD-40 here. I use this. This is a great for breaking up and softening up asphalt that gets trapped in here, and it doesn't hurt anything with regards to the saw. It just helps soften everything up so that you can remove it easily. This saw is pretty clean, so all I would do is I would get in here, work that in, brush all that debris out. Okay, and you see this oblong slot right here? When you fill this up with chain bar oil, you have a chain bar oil pump that sits behind this, and it pumps oil out into this and into this oil port on the chain bar itself. Okay, there's two of them, one on this side, one on this side, but you can see there's always going to be one in contact with that chain bar oiler orifice there. So that's how your chain bar oil gets onto your chain bar and to your saw chain. So anyway, all I do is I just clean up the debris, wipe it off, then we can put it back together again. There's a couple of things on here that you want to make sure are in place. There's a little metal fin right here. Make sure that that's there and it's tight. And then this is called a knuckle saver. They're all they're pretty beat up, but as long as they're in place, and this turning, it doesn't really matter, but as long as it's in place and solid, that's there in case the chain actually breaks. It'll wrap around and catch that thing, and it won't come around and get your knuckles. Now, after we got everything cleaned up, we're ready to put it back together again. There's a couple little things that you need to know. On the chainsaw cover guard here, there's a screw mechanism with a little post. And what that does is that tensions the whole mechanism up and puts proper tension on that saw blade so that it draws up nice and tight to your sprocket and onto the bar itself. Okay. Anytime that we take a chain saw apart like this, we want to flip the bar over. Okay, clean the bar up, put it back on, and just flip it over. Okay, and when we put the chain on, we want to make sure the chain's in the proper direction. So I start at the tip on that sprocket. Bring it around the bar so that it's all fitting in there right. And now, like I said, the top goes away from us. The top teeth are pointed away. We're ready to put it on. And then we work it into the chainsaw sprocket here. And then we can put our cover back on. Now, you may have to wiggle this a little bit till you feel that catch in. What that does is this screw adjusts that peg up and down on this threaded rod here. This causes this to put tension on the chain. So right now, our chain's going to be kind of loose and sloppy. That's okay. But we just wanted to get it all together for right now. We get our nuts back on the studs. Okay, just snug them up by hand. And now we want to use a screwdriver to adjust that chain. Can you see that? See how it takes up the slack on that chain when I turn that? And that just drives the saw, the chainsaw bar up. Now, you see how I can get just a little bit of a snap on there? That's usually pretty good. That's how I adjust them here at the shop. Now you can go ahead and tighten your saw up, and then you recheck this, because sometimes it takes a couple of adjustments to get that. Sometimes it feels too tight, sometimes it feels too loose. But anyway, that feels pretty good. So now that it's where we want it, we tighten those down nice and snug, make them nice and tight. Okay. So again, before we do anything, before we try to use the saw, make sure the chain's in the right direction. Top of the teeth pointing away from us, bottom of the teeth that are coming back at us. All right, now you're also going to get all kinds of tar, debris, sawdust, and everything else all over in the saw. When the saw is running, this is an air-cooled saw. So the airflow comes in right by the pull cord starter, draws it in, up and around the motor, and then out the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the cover off here. Get this exposed. So this is our air filter. We want to make sure that the air filter is nice and clean. It'll get stained up from when you cut and you got asphalt. It'll get stained black, but you want to make sure that it is just kind of cleaned up. You can brush it. If you have a station compressor, you can blow it. Blow it off, clean that debris out. Same thing with, like I said, this is an air-cooled engine. So you see, this is the piston chamber and combustion chamber. And you see these metal fins? This is what cools your saw. And the thing that is death to this saw is if it gets completely plugged up with asphalt and tar. And the way we remove that is we just spray it down with WD-40. If the saw is clean, it's pretty much just spray it down with WD-40, let it set for a few minutes, brush it around, and you'll be able to loosen that up and wipe it out. Or if you have a compressor, like I said, at your station, and you have an air nozzle, that'll help clean this out. But this does a remarkable job, that WD-40, at just cleaning crud off your saw. Okay, and after you get your saw cleaned up, put back together, and there's still a little bit of oil from the WD-40 on there, don't worry about it. It may smoke just a little bit, but it'll burn off, and then it'll run clean. It's fine. It doesn't hurt anything, but it will be just a little bit of light white smoke that comes off of here. So that's kind of normal. Sometimes you'll get into a situation when you're opening up a roof. Some of the flat roofs, you'll be going through metal decking, and then a couple of different layers of, there'll be foam, there'll be wafer board, rubber membrane, adhesives. Sometimes that is just too much for you guys to clean up on your saw. It'll get pulled up into your saw and just really make a mess of things. If that happens, bring it down to the shop. We'll spend a day soaking it down, cleaning it up, and getting it ready for you. The thing that kills the saw is overheating the saw. And the easiest way to overheat a saw is to allow asphalt to build up on this cylinder head here. It's the worst thing that can happen to a saw. It can't cool itself, and it relies on airflow through the saw body to cool the engine off. It's not like a car that has a radiator on it. This is the radiator for that saw. You know, and sometimes they break these latches. We have these replacement latches. We have them in stock. Just in closing, there's nothing on this saw that you can really hurt. You saw me take it apart. It's all pretty, comes apart, goes back together. It's all pretty simple. Anything that needs to be done beyond what you saw us do in this video, that's something that we need to do down here at the shop. Okay, if you have trouble getting it started and getting it running and it doesn't idle right, whatever, that's something that you need to bring it in down to the shop for us to address. Or in the situation where you cut through material that just gummed your saw up so bad you can't possibly clean it, bring it into the shop and we'll clean that too. Just a quick review. The way you start the saw: cold start, lever, red lever up, choke lever out. Make sure your compression button is in. Give it 3 or 4 quick pulls. It should start or want to start. And then you want to push your choke in. Make sure your button is still, your start button is still up in case that got moved for one reason or another. Compression button is pushed in so that you can start it, and then give it another 3 or 4 pulls. It should come up and start running for you. But if you have any questions, you can give Craig, Steve, or I a call down here at the shop, and we'll advise you on what you need to do. If you need to clean your saw, choke your saw, if you're having trouble starting it, we'll run through the starting procedure with you. If you're having cleaning issues or running issues, we'll have you bring the saw in. And anytime that you're in here and you're doing a changeover for maintenance, PM maintenance, and we're available, bring your saw over to us and we'll go through the same stuff that we went through with you here on this video, so that you can get some hands-on and see exactly what we're talking about if there's any confusion. So we're always here, ready to help. and you'll probably pick up a few extra pointers along the way. Okay.